Well, good evening, mind crafters. I was just saying in the last video, because I'm doing two together tonight because I'm just so inspired. I'm just having, just when you got to roll with it. When you're feeling inspired, you just do it, right? So, my name is Kimberly Quinn, and I'm just so excited to talk about mindfulness, which is one of the one of the two foundations of Minecraft, the other one being gratitude, right? And it's just so important. And so I wanted to kind of talk about what mindfulness is and what it is not. And in the last video, we were talking about the importance of the breath, of breathing, other than the obvious, because breathing helps us center and be in the moment. So mindfulness, sometimes you'll hear as mindfulness meditation, and sometimes just mindfulness, but it's not like any other form of meditation. So I'll tell you what it isn't. Mindfulness, unlike the other forms of meditation, there's all kinds of them. There's like standing ones, standing ones, laying down ones, walking ones about the mountains and the rivers, all different kinds. And certainly they're all good for us. So I would say, it's kind of like, movies or food or shoes or something. It's whatever fits for you. But there's a big difference. All those kind of have in common. Most are trying to create a thought vacuum, and I'm not an expert on all the different types for sure. Most, however, are trying to just, create this, nothingness of thought, and that, doesn't work for a lot of people. Certainly not this one. Is a card-carrying member of the Fast Mind Club, also known as ADHD, which is a total misnomer. Talk about that again later. So but I think for anyone though, it's mindfulness can be beneficial, honestly. And so here's what it isn't, and this is what I explain to my Minecraft students, and I have them come up with it, of course, because it's a teaching, it's a learning experience. So I elicit the questions, and then they come up with things, and then I kind of guide and tweak and direct, right? So mindfulness, what it isn't, it is not creating a thought vacuum. Instead, mindfulness is actually about allowing thoughts to roll through, and then we acknowledge them. Hello, anxiety, and kind of let it go on. And that's how it works. Secondly, it is not sedentary. Now, it can be that if you want to. If you want to sit, like totally zenned out, crisscross applesauce, my kids used to say when they were little. If you want to sit crisscross applesauce and do this, good for you. But that isn't a requirement. In fact, there really aren't any requirements with mindfulness, which is why I also love it. So I'm probably at my most mindful teaching, actually, because if there's anything that ever keeps me in the moment, it's teaching. Just flying around the room, so engaged with each student, which is why I have to watch the clock on the computer, because actually Champlain College, where I love to teach, I love teaching, and I love teaching at Champlain College, is a clockless campus because we want everybody to be in the moment. Well, that's great, except for that I would keep the students there till midnight. So anyway, very mindful, and also skiing. It's important to be skiing or mindful when you're skiing, because otherwise you get hit a tree. Trees don't tend to move. But I mean, I'm just naturally mindful. Washing the dishes, feel the warm water. Shower again, same thing. Feel the warm water. Smell the scent of the shampoo and soap, and just the mist and the whole thing. So mindfulness goes wherever we go. Mindful conversations, mindful eating, mindful everything, which is unlike the structured forms of meditation. And the third one I have here, and this is an abbreviated episode here, because you could certainly talk more about it, is I like that you can't really do it wrong. These other forms of meditation, and I can't imagine any of them are going to shame you, like, oh, you didn't lay down right. No, it's not what we're saying. I can't imagine anybody out there, teaching these would just say, okay, let's just do this and do that. But the mindfulness doesn't have the structure, I guess is what I'm saying. It doesn't have the structure. And so there really isn't a way to not fit in the glove, you know what I mean? So you can't do it wrong. And it's interesting, because when I say that to my Minecrafters, it's usually day one, because that's when we start with the whole mindfulness thing. I watch their faces, and I hear from them. I have very good relationships with my students, so I'm very involved with, things on campus and things. So I really listen to them a lot. And I watch their faces just get lighter. You mean I can't do it wrong? No, you can't. It involves breathing. You certainly can't do that wrong. You do it when you're asleep. You're not even in charge of what's going on when you're asleep, right? And so you can't do it wrong. And they have so much pressure on them, in this day and age, that it's just one thing I can do right no matter what. And I think that's kind of cool. We talked about the deep breathing. So here's and what mindfulness is. Granted, this is abbreviated. We could talk about this for longer than this. One of my favorite, just my favorite ones. Okay, mindfulness is non-judgmental. I love that mindfulness is non-judgmental. So rather than, oh no, I'm supposed to be creating a thought vacuum and there one came right across there it went. It's like, okay, I just had an anxious thought. So who cares? So what? Welcome to the human race. I just had a pissed off thought from 3 weeks ago that just came back now. What's the matter with me that I can't stop this when I'm trying to be mindful? No, it's okay. Clearly, a memory surged up, and whenever a memory surges up, it brings with it the emotions. So it's kind of like revisiting that whole thing that happened by the water cooler three weeks ago, right back in the cabeza, right? So okay, so we know that happens, and we're human, and that's going to happen, and that's okay, and we acknowledge it and just let it roll because that is the quickest way to let it roll. It's on the go, right? So we talked about that, doing anything. And also, lastly, mindfulness is about being alert and awake and engaged in your life. The opposite of that, the opposite of being alert, awake, and engaged in your life in the present moment, right here, right now, okay, is that would be autopilot. And autopilot is like we kind of zone out, we're like in broccoli mode. Biggest thief of life minutes that there could possibly be is being in broccoli mode. It's not, sometimes people think, oh, I'm just being relaxed. No, you're not. It's just passive. It's not a genuine, what did my friend just say at Champlain? Constructive rest. If you didn't see that one, Sarah Camille Wilson, a friend of mine and colleague at Champlain, did a whole thing on constructive rest, mindful rest. So binging on Netflix is not actually rejuvenating. No. If you're cooking or gardening or washing the dish, whatever, and you're in the moment right then, right there, that is rejuvenating. So that's what we're talking about, alert and engaged in your life. And so otherwise, when we're not, life minutes are going right down the rabbit hole, never to come back. I'm a fabulous 58, and I'm going to want, let's say, I'm in broccoli mode for half an hour. I'm not getting that back. I'm going to want that 30 minutes of 58 back later when I'm like, 95 and skydiving. That's what I'm saying. Okay, benefits. There are so many. I'm just going to roll out a few. We become less reactive because we're practicing being in the moment. What we practice, we inevitably get good at. And being present is not easy for most of us, at least here in the States. We're just a fast-paced, very media-saturated society. Wonderful country. I love my country. I'm just saying we are very distracted. And so we become less reactive. And so this is good because remember, we've done some videos on this recently. When we react, that's like a knee-jerky, somebody says something snarky, right back at you, versus responding, which is a more slowed down, deep breath, taking it all in, not giving them a pass maybe, but maybe I don't really need to say anything. Maybe they just got back from the dentist, maybe their tooth hurts, maybe they had something bad happen, maybe they didn't get sleep, maybe they don't feel well, who knows? Maybe they struggle with some mental illness, like whatever. And we're not saying give them a pass. We're not going to just jump back in and dig in with claws and I'll say something back to you or give them a laser vision look or whatever. And we're less apt to, I'm talking about the petty stuff. Sometimes the bigger stuff needs to have a conversation. But the everyday petty, and you go into Subway to get that, then they're not fast enough, and then she says something to you, and then you're all in it, and like, no. So we practice mindfulness, we become less reactive, like significantly less reactive. Also, anxiety and depression go down. Why? Because when we're in the present moment, there's no room for it. So I'll say to my students, I'm talking about 100% here in the present moment, you're not having any, fear-based anxious thoughts unless you're being beaten in this moment with a spiked club, which I don't see. So no, because you're in the moment. It's not, anxiety comes from thoughts about the future, and sadness and all the whole depression family come from, ruminating on the past, and it is more complicated than that. So disclaimer, we're not saying that. We're just saying, talking about mindfulness specifically, and these videos are not meant to take place of professional treatment. But less reactive, reduce anxiety and depression. If we're really in the moment, it shouldn't be there, isn't there? Sorry, not sure, I don't like that word. Isn't there. Also, because we're practicing non-judgment, we become less non-judgmental in general. It's kind of like running. If you run most days, let's say you run 5 days out of 7, the 2 days you didn't run, you're still in good shape. And you're still enhancing your immune system, you're still sleeping better, you're still healthier. It's kind of the same thing. If you're being mindful more and more each day, even talking about minutes even, more and more present each day, you're going to be less practicing with non-judgment when the thoughts come through. You're going to be less judgmental in general. Less judgmental in general. And the cool thing about this is that the less judgmental part leaks into our relationships. How can it not? If we're becoming less judgmental of ourselves, showing compassion and love and kindness, that sort of organically transfers to the people in our lives and even strangers, right? Because we're just less reactive, more responsive, less judgmental, more kind. It just kind of happens. And then we are more focused. That's sort of obvious. We be increased happiness. We're happier because we are in the present moment, which is where all of that resides, and joy and everything else. And we become more creative. And I think, I don't know how many videos I've done where it just comes out where I'm out in the woods with little G, he's right there. He is. He's on his little chair. He's taking a snooze because we did an hour and 15 snowshoe today. And then a squirrel got in the house and he chased her. He didn't get her. We can all breathe on that one too. He chased her all around the house. She went up the drapes. I don't know how she got in here. But anyway, I don't see her anymore. I hope I left the door open, so hopefully she got out there. Lost my whole train of thought with the squirrel. That's kind of ironic, isn't it? Or metaphorical or something. I had a squirrel, but it was real. Okay, so I get so extremely creative in the woods because today it was just a winter wonderland, just trees and snow art and ice art and the brook and the noises and the loud quiet and the whole thing. And I'm just flooded with creative thoughts. And so there you go. So mindfulness, be more present in 223. This is our chance. We're not getting any of it back. Our valuable life minutes. So instead of letting them go down the drain with autopilot and broccoli mode, spend them as if they were cash. Use them wisely. Like Harry Potter's invisibility cloak. That's what I tell my students. Spend them wisely. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from my living room in Northern Vermont. Have a very mindful day.